this is becoming comical, if not farcical, at the moment. I'll put it to you first, Kirsty, as a former advisor of Liz Truss. I mean, you've been in that circle, you've been in that situation, you know, probably not when, you know, as Liz Truss is at the highest position in politics, but have you ever seen and witnessed anything like this in your time?
The last few weeks have been like watching government through your fingers. It's excruciating. But I have never seen anything like I saw last night. It was carnage in the division lobbies. We had tales of MPs in tears because of this confusion over whether they were supposed to be voting against the Labour lobby. All day, the whips had been insisting this was a confidence motion for the Prime Minister. And when it came to it at the last minute, they buckled because it appeared that they didn't have the votes that they needed. There was a U-turn, there was confusion, there were stories about MPs being manhandled into the lobbies, other MPs being shouted at, people in tears, the chief whip basically standing in the middle of central lobby and saying, "I quit," and her deputy using some fruity language, which I won't repeat this morning, and saying, "I've had enough of this, I'm gone and out of here." It was chaos,
in the early hours,
wrapped in confusion, and came back again. And they were unquit within 3 hours.
I mean, we'll unpick that, because I think for a lot of people watching, the idea that it was a no-confidence vote kind of needs explaining as to why it's relevant. But you caught my eye, some comments you'd made about Liz Truss when you worked with her yesterday. You know, that you were... She didn't like media, she didn't like talking to the media, and you were sort of tasked, the group of you, with... Well, actually, let's have a quick listen to what you had to say, because I know you want to slightly soften it now, but let's have a quick listen.
Liz Truss, when I worked for her, you know, she didn't like the media, so we used to spend quite a lot of time making up excuses and, you know, killing off, you know, minor members of her family so that she didn't have to go on question time.
So she would pretend somebody close to her had passed away in order to not do it, which feels a little bit like the sort of thing when kids say, "My goldfish died, that's why I didn't do my homework." It's kind of like the dog ate my manifesto, isn't it? It's just ridiculous.
In defence of the Prime Minister, to make me a lone voice this morning, in defence of the Prime Minister, it was particularly an issue with question time, because Downing Street quite often would want you to do, you know, Thursday night filming of Question Time in some far-flung part of the country. I was a inexperienced and naive spad who used the path of least resistance to get out of doing it for Downing Street. So...
OK, but what I suppose it is it speaks to the idea of bending the truth and fibbing about something quite serious in order to get out of things. To be fair to her, she did appear at Prime Minister's question. People thought before the rest of the chaos unfolded that she didn't do a bad job, considering the situation she was in. She did turn up. Is there if she keeps on turning up, can she survive?
Well, I mean, yeah, the irony of yesterday is one of the few things that you can say in favour of this government and the Prime Minister yesterday was she delivered a pretty decent, solid performance at PMQs yesterday. It was full of grit. She said, "I'm a quitter, not a fighter." But even then, yes...
Fighter.
Oh,
yeah.
Freudian slip.
I was about to say, I think... I think she might be saying that by later on today. Yeah.
She said, "I am a fighter, not a quitter." So she delivered quite a gritty performance. But if you look at the backbenchers behind her, they are completely stony-faced and completely silent. While behind Keir Starmer, the Labour benches are clearly, you know, delighted by what's going on and know that the days are numbered.
Ayesha, let's go back to sort of tea time yesterday. I mean, there's so much happened from about sort of 5 o'clock yesterday evening. I mean, I was trying to get to bed at about 10 o'clock going, I don't know, whether should I stay up? There could be more coming here. Let's go back to this moment where Suella Braveman quits. Now, it's really significant. This wasn't quitting because she didn't entirely make out she was quitting, but she disagreed. She said the reason why she quit was a mistake she made by sending an email regarding immigration policy on her private phone. Just explain what your interpretation of that is.
So she did something she shouldn't have done. You're not meant to send confidential information on your private account, and she is the Home Secretary. She's responsible for security, so that is a breach. But there's way more to this story than
that
just
in itself
a technicality.
Doesn't feel like a sackable or a resignation point. I mean, that must have happened.
Well, Well, look,
it's a mistake.
Well, it is a mistake, and you can argue, on the one hand, look, at least somebody at some point in this government has said, I've done something wrong, I'm going to take the rap. But there's a much bigger story behind this, and this is the mother of all rows about immigration. Suella Braveman is a sort of flag bearer of the sort of hard right of the Conservative Party, who do not want any immigration. Liz Truss and Jeremy Hunt are going on and on about growth. Everybody who has got half a brain cell knows that if you want to boost growth in this country, you're going to have to liberalise some of the immigration rules to let more people in. She absolutely did not want to do that, and that's the real reason.
And to be fair to her, she is sticking by the manifesto that this government was elected on by the people, by keeping those rules stricter. So we're in a situation now where a Home Secretary resigns by sticking to her personal beliefs and a manifesto.
But the thing is, if you become a cabinet member, Kate, there's a thing called collective responsibility. So you're not there to freelance giving it the big one about your own personal feelings.
But it was also the pledge in the manifesto.
But look at all the other ones that they've sort of broken. But also the other thing, which is really important here, she humiliated herself the day before in the chamber with this pathetic. She thought it was a really hilarious riff. Tofu eating. I mean, get with the programme. That is a joke from, like, the comedy circuit from, like, the 1980s, if you're left eating tofu. Get with the programme. But the other thing is she's going on and on about the anti-growth coalition. If she is against liberalising immigration rules, and she's torpedoed, it looks like, the trade deal with India because she doesn't want Indian people coming over, she herself is leading the anti-growth coalition. But this feeds into a bigger narrative, as Kirsty was just saying, about just the absolute carnage at the heart of government. And you know what? As somebody who is a satirist, who loves following the news, there is parts of it which is funny, but actually, for most people watching, for most of us, we are terrified looking at this absolute car crash. It's affecting our bank balances, it's affecting our mortgage payments, it's affecting our energy bills going up, businesses are going to go under. It's an absolute... We are an international laughingstock. And in terms of calming the markets down, it's instability after instability. It's like a kind of fiesta of chaos.
It's horrible. And on top of the fact that it was ostensibly about a rule-breaking email that was sent from the wrong email address, you've outlined the wider picture of this row over immigration. But there's also politics on top of that, isn't there, Kirsty, where people are now lining up to try and be the person to take over from Liz Truss. And it felt like she was saying, I'm the right-wing, you're not Ayesha, I'm the right-wing person to take over. So it's still like we're in the middle of a leadership election that we have no control over.
This was a letter entirely made out of two parts, right? The first part was...
Your resignation letter.
My flimsy excuse for why I've had to resign, and nobody would resign over a technical breach of sending a WMS normally. The second bit of it goes on not just to talk about the policy differences, which are very stark between them, but also the ethics, as she sees it, of making a mistake, not owning it, and owning the responsibility for it, and therefore resigning. And Suella says in her letter, I made a mistake, I take responsibility, I resign. It's a clear, not terribly subtle dig at the Prime Minister.
She goes further, doesn't she? She says we can't go around making mistakes so that everybody can see a mistake and not owning.
And what she's saying here in terms is, is saying to the Prime Minister, that mini budget, which started all this unravelling of the government, was your mistake, your failure. You made your ex-Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng take the fall for it. Why are you still in office?
And the thing that I find frightening is that clearly the insinuation here is she's taken her moment and that she could return in some sort of leadership election. She thinks she can, because she represents the very right of the party. And what frightens me is that she has an incredibly cruel, hard line on immigration. And she thinks that could still gain her popularity.